Considering. Okay, so we've been through Jesus' arrest. We've been through his trials. We've been through the whipping, the flogging, and then him carrying the cross to the patibulum, the crossbar, to the crucifixion, the place of the crucifixion, and then his burial. And we were just heading into this about the tomb itself. I talked about the tomb itself, but this 3,000 to 4,000 pound stone was rolled down into a, what would you call that?
Ditch.
Well, not a ditch, but a depression. And he had been embalmed, what they did for embalming, covered with spices and linen, head to toe. And then people came to Pilate and said, we heard that, that the disciples might want to steal the body, so you need to, you need to, do something about that. And so Pilate's words were, go and make it as secure as you know how. And as secure as you know how means this Roman guard of 16 men, and someone was always guarding it. Now that others might be sleeping, but they were sleeping in this formation. They were all right there. And if anyone tried to approach the tomb, they would not have been able to get into it. And they could not have gotten past those guards. They were trained, the most fierce fighting force on the planet at the time, and they were trained to stand their ground and to defeat anyone that would come to them. So that was as secure as they knew how, and it was sealed with the seal of the emperor, which made things even worse if you tried to get into that tomb. Yes.
And the soldiers are on the outside, right? They're on these.
Right. So the tomb is on the other side of that.
What's the black? What's the
Yeah.
black?
So that's the seal. That's the seal of Caesar. So I don't know if it actually looks like that. It means more like a seal, like it's not. It means not sealed up so much as the stamp that we call that. Like when on your official transcripts, I put an imprint of our seal, of our school seal.
Did anybody carving in the stone?
I don't know how that would have looked specifically. Yeah, so several things happen in very close succession because we've got this armed guard and this huge stone, and the stone was rolled uphill. No, not uphill, but a hill. Just it had to come up from where it was lying, and that was not something that could have happened. It certainly was not something that could happen with the Roman guard standing there. And something happened to make those soldiers go AWOL at the possible cost of their lives, leaving their post. So it had to be something worse or more terrifying than anything that they had experienced before, because they fled. I'm thinking an angel or two could do that. I don't think I'd want to hang around. So that they leave the tomb. And then thirdly, the grave clothes tell a tale. So just by way of reminder, they would take linen cloth, like think of a bolt of fabric. I only know that's what it's called. I don't sew at all. But it's not an actual dress yet. It's just this long piece of material, right? So this linen, and then after each pass, they would pack spices in there. I think we said it was, was it about 100 pounds of spices that they put on Jesus, something like that. And they would do that head to toe, and then they'd put a cloth around the head. So Jesus' body was lying there that way. But I think the picture people get is, Jesus wakes up and, it says cool, and he starts unwrapping himself. That would not have been possible, right? There's no way he could have done that. And I think that the Passion of the Christ does a pretty good job of showing what happens and what, according to the wording in the Gospels, what happened. Like he just materialized out of it, and the grave clothes looked just like there was a body in it. It just wasn't a body in it. And so I'm going to show you a video from Passion of the Christ on that. We got miles to go before we sleep. This is all on camera now, so thank you.
You're welcome.
For understanding. So the grave tales tell a tale. The Greek of the story reads like he just materialized out of it, just as this kind of, or in the same sense as we see it in that clip. And then the next thing that happens is that the first people to come to the tomb are the women, right? They're and that is unusual. So now on the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene came to the tomb early while it was still dark and saw that the stone had been taken away from the tomb. So the stone was removed uphill. The Roman guards run away. The grave clothes tell a tale. And then it says this: while the women were going, so they're headed to the grave, behold, some of the guards went into the city and told the chief priests all that had taken place. And when they had assembled with the elders and taken counsel, they gave a sufficient sum of money to the soldiers, and said, "Tell people his disciples came by night and stole him away while we were asleep. And if this comes to the governor's ears, because they will be executed if they actually fell asleep, we will satisfy him and keep you out of trouble." So they took the money and did as they were directed, and this story has been spread among the Jews to this day. So we have these women coming to the grave first, and then we have the guards going in, shaking and upset, and they're given money to stay quiet, and they're told that they'll be protected from that. So then Peter and John go to the tomb, and as written by John, so Peter went out with the other disciple, and they were going toward the tomb. Both of them were running together, but the other disciple outran Peter and reached the tomb first. Just make sure you know. And stooping to look in, he saw the linen cloths lying there, but he did not go in. Very, very much like Peter, to just in, and John's like, and then Simon Peter came following him and went into the tomb. He saw the linen cloths lying there, and the face cloth which had been on Jesus' head, not lying with the linen cloths, but folded up in a place by itself. Then the other disciple who had reached the tomb first, again tells us, also went in, and he saw and believed. For as yet they did not understand the scripture that he must rise from the dead. Then the disciples went back to their homes, which is kind of interesting because you would think that they'd be excited, but they still were fearful, right? Even after this. And they are going to remain fearful really until Pentecost, until the Spirit comes. And then they're going to become warriors, quite literally. And then here's the story of the women. But on the first day of the week, at early dawn, they went to the tomb, taking the spices they had prepared, and they found the stone rolled away from the tomb. But when they went in, they did not find the body of the Lord Jesus. While they were perplexed about this, behold, two men stood them in dazzling apparel. And as they were frightened and bowed their faces to the ground, the men said to them, Why do you seek the living among the dead? He is not here, but he is risen. Remember how he told you when he was still in Galilee that the Son of Man must be delivered into the hands of sinful men and be crucified and on the third day rise? And they remembered his words, and returning from the tomb, they told all these things to the 11 and to all the rest. Now it was Mary Magdalene and Joanna and Mary the mother of James and the other women with them who told these things. By the way, also the mother of John, but he doesn't name himself, he names his brother. The other women with them who told these things to the apostles, but these words seemed to them an idle tale, and they did not believe them. Now, that might have been caused John and Peter to go, but the women weren't believed at first, and that's not unusual because women weren't allowed to be they weren't allowed to be witnesses in a court of law, and so their opinion literally didn't matter. And then his appearance was confirmed by many witnesses. Now, I would remind you, this might be familiar to you. Now, I would remind you, brothers, of the gospel I preached to you, which you received, in which you stand, and by which you are being saved, if you hold fast to the word I preached to you, unless you believed in vain. For I delivered to you as of first importance what I also received, that Christ died for our sins in accordance with the Scriptures, that he was buried, that he was raised on the third day in accordance with the Scriptures, and that he appeared to Cephas, meaning Peter, then to the 12. Then he appeared to more than 500 brothers at one time, most of whom are still alive, though some have fallen asleep. Then he appeared to James, then to all the apostles. Last of all, as to one untimely born, he appeared also to me on the road to Damascus. So we have all of these sightings of Jesus and as many as 500 people at one time. That claimed to see Jesus after his crucifixion, after his death. So here's just by way of summary. The feared power of Rome was ignored by the breaking of the Roman seal at the tomb. Both the Jews and the Romans admitted that the tomb was empty. The 2-ton stone, 3,000 to 4,000 pound stone, was moved from the tomb entrance while a Roman guard stood watch. A highly disciplined Roman military guard fled their watch and had to be bribed by authorities to lie about what actually happened. The undisturbed grave clothes were no longer contained a body. Christ subsequently appeared to as many as 500 witnesses at one time in a variety of situations. And because of the low view of the reliability of women, manufacturers of the resurrection story would have never made women the first witnesses of that fact. All of that is probably not new news to you. So let's talk a little bit about the aftermath of. Hang on. Nope. Yeah, the aftermath of the resurrection. The first is the changed lives of the disciples. They were cowering in fear, as I told you, and that actually didn't really change until Pentecost. They were less fearful when Jesus was around for that period of time after his resurrection, but they changed the course of history. This motley crew of fishermen and tax collectors and uneducated men turned the world upside down after the resurrection. And then secondly, the church began. At Pentecost, as I already said in Acts 2, Peter preached the first sermon, the first Christian sermon ever. And so you have him to thank or to vilify for doing that. And 3,000 converts came to Christ. And very early on, almost immediately, Easter was celebrated instead of the Passover. They're at the same time of year. But instead, these are Jewish Christians, and instead of celebrating the Passover, they were celebrating Easter. And then there's historical evidence supporting the resurrection of Jesus. And then just our own lives are a testimony of who Jesus is and what Jesus has done, not only in our own lives, but in the world. So that's the end of this lecture. I am going to move on because I want to give us as much time for lesson 6 next week. And we're gonna, I'm gonna do a lecture that is actually my lecture about the resurrection. So I'm gonna turn off the video here from this lecture, and we'll move on. And